Good afternoon, Professor Oberholster, and thank you for joining us. And we'd like to congratulate you on your 2021 NSTF-Water Research Commission Award. But before we go into detail, please tell us more about your life path up until now.
Thank you very much, Janus. I appreciate your kind words. Well, my career started at the University of the Free State as an assistant technical, where I was exposed to limnology. Now, limnology is a research field looking at freshwater bodies, which include then obvious your wetlands, rivers, and dams. I did immediately fell in love with this specific research field. And after leaving the university, become a high school teacher and generate money for further studies, I finished my master's degree in limnology at the University of the Free State part-time. After that, I enrolled for my PhD at the University of Pretoria, and I left South Africa to do my practical research in Colorado State in the US, where I work specifically on toxicology in the Great Thompson catchment of the Colorado River. After returning to South Africa, I joined the CSR as a senior researcher and worked myself up in the ranks as a principal and later chief researcher at the CSR. During my time there, I realized that looking only at symptoms of pollution in water is not going to be the way to mitigate water resources. So I also start looking at the source of pollution. And that is where I did make a large shift in my research and start looking at passive treatment. Now, passive treatment is treatment that usually being done using biological organisms, which can be aquatic plants or algae. So I venture in this direction and start looking how we can treat acid mine drainage using specific consortiums of algae with funding from the WRC and Caltech. We did set up the first ecological engineering wetland in the Zalklapvlei in Mpumalanga, where we treat acid mine drainage and increase the pH from 3.7 to 7.1 within 6 months. I further do realize that we can use this algae for other opportunities and start doing research related to treating domestic wastewater, focusing specifically on rural areas and rural communities. The first project that we rolled out was in Groblersdal and rural area where we treat 4.2 megaliters of wastewater, domestic wastewater, and then also looking at the possibility to remove this algae that treat the wastewater by looking at aquaculture. During this time, the African Developing Bank did come on board, and they want us to look at this technology in other climate conditions, and we also roll out a pilot plant in Mossel Bay area. Here we look specifically using the algae as bioproduct to generate biofertilizer or for biogas. From there on, the African Development Bank also wants us to look at the feasibility in the rest of Africa, specifically Southern Africa, and we also rolled one of these plants out in Malawi. From this, we realized that this algae consortium can be used to treat different industrial effluent, and that's where we're currently doing our research in. I think the highlights for me during my career at the CSR was to run an integrated water research project for the African Union, also to be part of tracking pollution in the Parana River in South America, one of the greatest rivers in the world, and then also to chair the development of the Atlas of Wastewater and Sanitation for Africa. In 2019, I joined the University of the Free State as Director of the Center of Environmental Management, and currently I'm a lecturer for master degrees in Integrated Water Resource Management.
Great, Professor. That is quite a long journey. And now with the NSTF-Water Research Commission Award, what does that award mean to you?
For me, the award means science in the service of society. This award also gives me really a clear indication of my research, and that my research is on track with national and with international trends in the field of passive treatment specifically.
Professor, then adding to that, why should research be conducted on the management of water in South Africa?
South Africa is a water scarce country. Our annual rainfall is 464 millimeters per year. With that, we've got high levels of evaporation and low return flows of rainwater to our rivers and dams in the system itself. And furthermore, coupled with this, we sit with an increase in population growth and obviously also climate change. And all these drivers in the system, we need to manage our water in such a way that we don't lose some of our water resources and uses unnecessary. I foresee in the future that the reuse of water will be becoming more and more important, and that if we don't use our water thoroughly, we will have an impact on our economic growth in South Africa definitely in the future.
Great, Professor. And then, as a researcher, what is that one fact that any South African should know?
Well, from my side is that people need to realize that water is precious and that we mustn't take it for granted. And that was evident in 2017 in the Western Cape province, where we sit with day zero. We don't manage our water right, obvious, we won't have a future in South Africa. And what is very important for us related to this is that we can do that. There's many other countries in the world. For example, even in Africa, where we sit with a country like Namibia with less water than us, making use of different reuse techniques to keep their economic growth and to provide ecosystem services and a healthy aquatic ecosystem for the future.
Professor, and as Director at the Center of Environmental Management at the University of the Free State, what challenges did COVID-19 pose to the work that you do there, and also the biggest scheme of research in the field of water research?
I think what's important is the COVID-19 did really affect our students, especially our resident students. You can't go out into the field to do your monitoring in the field itself. So it becomes a situation where there is a backlog related to results of monitoring in the system. It's also difficult to get access to different sites to do this monitoring. I mean, most of the places that close down and don't allow anybody from the outside to visit these sites that we normally visit to monitoring water. in the bigger picture of South Africa, I think it was also affecting government in the way that Department of Water says water and sanitation do have a large monitoring program where they're monitoring water resources all over South Africa. These programs was also affected, so we sit with a gap in data that's available, and hopefully we can generate new data and constant data in the near future. I'm very positive that we learn a lot from COVID-19, and we learn to do things more entrepreneurial and think out of the box. I think what we realize is that society is very vulnerable, and that brings me back to the point where I talked about Day Zero in the Western Cape in 2019. I think society realized suddenly business as usual is not happening. And I think that can strongly be related to our water resources in South Africa. We must realize that we just have a certain amount of water and that we need to use this water as the most efficient way that we can. And I think that is the point that we realize with COVID-19 specifically as well, that we're very vulnerable and that we need to plan for the future and also for the generations that come after us.
Professor, what is the future holding for you?
Well, receiving the award, this prestigious award, was definitely for me a motivation for the future. I'm looking forward to taking further steps in my research, specifically in the passive treatment research. I think we've only done the tip of the iceberg at this stage. We want to look at further effluent from industries, different effluents that hasn't been tested, to use this algae to treat these effluents. We're also going to look at different consortiums of algae that may be better than the current consortiums that we're looking treating the water. Then I want to spend also more time on seeing how we can use this algae as byproduct for the local community, specifically in rural areas, so that we can create jobs for the future for these people, and also help them with entrepreneurial skills to use the algae as products for green cycle economy.
Professor, thank you so much for your time. We wish you best of luck, and I hope finance will just stream in for you to pursue further studies in your field and also the research that you are conducting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Johannes, for your kind words, and thank you for your time.